Okay, everybody, let's get started. My name is Ross here at Church Windows, and I'm going to be doing today's topic is doing a mail merge export out of Church Windows. I have Kellyanne answering questions for me, so if you have questions, you can ask them during the webinar or afterwards. Try and keep them on topic, though, and we'll try and answer them throughout. All right, so let's get started. So to do a mail merge export, you can get into the reports section from multiple areas, but in general, I'd usually just open up membership, click on reports, and then click on reports directory export. That opens up this window to the first screen where you, on these tabs, you choose who you want to appear on your export. So, and then the people tab is your main filter for that. So I'm just going to put in a criteria here real quick. I want to get, let's do all, I'll do all females that are 18 or older. Greater than 18 plus selection, just so it filters out. And then you can kind of see how that works on the next page there. So then I just click next. And that takes you to the screen. And what we're going to be working on today is the mail merge export function, which is right here. It's kind of the top center. And we use this when we want to export the raw data of a report's results into Excel or like a WordPad or a Notepad document that can then be either used in that or used to be imported into other things like Constant Contact or Outlook. You can import files from Church Windows, doing the mail merge export into those if you like. So after you choose mail merge export, you then to create a new export layout, you click the new button, and then you give it a name that you know what it is, and can use it for future reports. For this one, I'll just let's call that adult women and click OK. And when you click OK, it'll bring up the column selector window where you can then choose what information you want to have appear on your export. By default, it has last name and preferred name on there. If you don't want those, you can just click on them so they're highlighted, and then click the arrow key pointing to the left to remove it, or you can just double click on it and then it will remove it as well. So right now there's nothing on the visible column, so nothing would be on the export. So then everything on the left are different fields that you can add to the export. Typically, what most people want is address or contact information, and to do that, you'll want to have a few different fields added. You'll want the address 1 field, the address 2 field, which would be address 2 is like apartment number or things like that. So if someone lives in an apartment building and then they're in apartment A, address 2 would be apartment A. And then you want the city-state column and the zip code. and then any other contact information like phone number and things like that if you wanted added. So I'm just going to add those real quick. So to add them, you can double click on them to move it to the left or the right, or you can click on it and then click the arrow button to add it. Let me scroll down to city, state, and then I'll scroll over to the bottom and do zip code. I selected current as of today. That's just basically the default one I do. If it really only comes into play if you have alternate addresses in your database, like if people summer elsewhere or they go to college and they have a different address during the year. Then if you want to use the main address for a family, no matter what their alternate address or other addresses are, you would do family main. And then if you want to get a list of just people's alternate addresses in general, you don't care if it's active or not, you would do family alt or individual alt. And that would give you the alternate addresses for that particular family or person. Let me just add last name and first name as well. And when it exports, depending on how you want it to look, you can also change the basically the column header. So if you don't want it to say current as of today in your Excel sheet or on your Word pad, to maybe save room and things like that, or just make it look cleaner. Before you ever export it, you can, on this column here where it says export column header, you can change the text of, to just say just address 1. So you can just select the current as of today, click the minus, or click the backspace and clear this out. And then when we export it, it's just going to say address 1, address 2, city, state, zip code on the actual export. If you ever just want to go back to the default, you can click the little kind of backward reverse arrow button there, and then it will reset the name back to the default. So you can see zip code now says current as of today again at the end. And then once you have the different fields that you want listed under here under visible columns, you can just click OK. And then you can see that the name that we listed here, adult women, is here on under the drop down. And and anytime you make new export layouts, you'll have those different options to choose from, and they'll be here in the list with the different titles you gave them. You can always go back in and edit an existing layout just by selecting it from the drop down. So I still have adult women selected and clicking select fields, and that gives you the list again. So say I want to add age again, and then I double click it and add it over. And if you want to adjust the order of the fields, you just select the field that you want to move the order of, and then you can click the up and down arrows over here on the right, and adjust it up or down. So I'm just going to put it right underneath the last name and first name. And then what's essentially the most important part of the export is telling it where you want it to export to and what kind of file you want it to be exported as. So by default, the program is going to export it to your documents folder as a text file or a tab delimited file. If you want to change where it gets exported to, you're going to click this button here with the 3 dots. It's basically the browse button. So you click that, and then it's going to basically give you the option to choose where you want it to export. Depending on your operating system, or if you're on the cloud version of Church Windows or not, this screen is going to look a little bit different to you. But in general, if you're not on the cloud version and you just want to put it to the desktop, all you have to do is click this right here where it says executable desktop and click open, and that's going to export it directly to your desktop. And then where it says delimiter right below, this is essentially what that means is what is the way that the different columns are separated on the actual export itself. With a delimiter of tab, that means in between the first name, last name, and age, all your different columns, what separates them is a tab. So basically you hit the tab on your keyboard, new column, tab again, another column. It can be a little hard to read if you're just trying to look at the raw data, but there are some programs when you're importing them into them that they prefer the tab delimited versus comma. Comma was going to create what's called a CSV file, which stands for comma separated values, essentially meaning the different tabs or the different columns in the report are separated by commas instead of tabs. It can also, in its own way, it can be a little hard to read, but the comma separated values files, those open up by default into Excel, and if you want to export anything into Excel where you can then mess around with it, you want to do a comma file. And then when you do that, so you select your different delimiters, you can see here it changes from a CSV when you have comma selected to a text when you have tab selected. In general, I typically do comma just because it's easier to read once it's actually out of the program, and most any other program that you're wanting to import it to that I've used accepts either, but I just find comma a little bit easier to read. So once you have your delimiter set, you can then click the export button, and then what that's going to do, it's going to everybody in this list here. So like with our search criteria of all females above the age of 18, you can see that's the only people that are listed. They're all going to get created into a file. So I'm going to click export. It's going to work on creating it. It's going to let me know that the file has been created in this particular location, and then if I want to open up that location to see the file. So if I click yes to this, the file has been created in desktop. If I click yes, you're going to see the file. It's going to open up essentially the File Explorer window onto the desktop, and then I can see the file that I created right here, adult women. So then after that opens, I can just click adult women, and it should open it up into Excel, and it did. Let me just expand that out, and then you can see the file has been created, and then you can use it to do any mail merges or imports into Constant Contact or Outlook or any other programs that you use. So let me just expand that out, and then you can see up here this top column, I had removed the current as of today on the address 1, address 2, city, state, but I left it under zip code. And you can see it's still listed there, so you can see how that affects, what you put as the column header affects the actual export itself. So let me close out of that. Don't want to save any changes, but I'm also going to show you how a tab delimited file looks. I'm just going to export that. Don't open up the text file, and then you have open up adult women, and then you can see how this particular report looks. So it's messy, but everything is still tab separated. So any program that you use to import it into is going to be able to read this correctly, because you can see all the actual information is still separated by a tab. It's just a little messy is all. Export. And really, we went a little short, but really that is all there is to it for the mail merge exports. You just make sure you choose the right people for your report, and then you can choose what information you want, and then you want to make sure you're choosing tab or comma depending on what you're needing. Is there any questions out there? Let's see. Looks like Gene is asking if there's any way to transfer this info into Word. I believe. Oh, let me check. I think Word can open up either file. It's not going to look particularly pretty because Word isn't really designed to handle separated files like this. But let's just try it. Let's just click open. Tell it to do all files. We'll go to the desktop and just see what it does. So so you can get it into Word like that. So that's the tab separated file. But again, you can get it into Word, but if you get it into Excel, if you needed to do this for like a mail merge or to make letters and things like that, getting it into Excel will be just as good. Let's see if we can do Excel. And yeah, you can import it into Word as well. It's just separated by commas, and it looks messy as well. Yeah, and Maggie asks if you can print mailing labels from such a file. For anybody else who's wondering, that's a function within Microsoft Word itself to do a mail merge. So you have to do the start mail merge and create your labels up here. I'm not exactly sure of the process since it's outside of Church Windows. I just know it's a thing essentially. But yeah, there's the start mail merge. So I believe the way it works is you click the start mail merge, you tell it what file to get the information from. So you would tell it the adult women file that you created. Hope that helps. Let me close out of these. Are there any other questions out there? Okay, I am not seeing any other questions popping in. If you guys do having any questions, you can always give us a call or email us. You can email us at support@churchwindows.com, and we'll be glad to help you out with any questions you have then. Thanks. Bye-bye.